Everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you've never been here before. Hey! So in today's video, we're going to be discovering the case of Rosemary Ndlovu. This lady is crazy, but before we get into the case, I just want to say Happy New Year to everyone. 2022 is about to be the best year of your life if you're watching this. If you're not watching this, I don't know what to tell you. But 2022 is going to be the best year of your life. It's just going to be a great year. I can feel it. I can feel it already. It's going to be a good year. But anyway, so let's get into this case because there's a lot of things to get into. We're going to get into some things. So today we're in South Africa, specifically Johannesburg. I am so sorry if I mispronounce any of these names. Most likely I will, but I am sorry in advance. I mean no disrespect to anyone named that I mispronounced in this video. So we're going to talk about the story of Rosemary Ndlovu. So Rosemary was born in 1975 to her mother, Maria Mshwana. She was born in Johannesburg, South Africa. So as a child, Rosemary had a pretty normal childhood. Like, she grew up very normal. There isn't much about her father online, so I'm not sure about her father, but I know that she had a very normal childhood. And as she grew up into adolescent and into teenager, most of her family and friends, they would describe her as masculine and fearless. Like, she was the type of person that would do things that other women would be afraid of doing. Like, you know, like if somebody's coming to come rob your house and you go hide behind your man, Rosemary is going to be at the front of the house ready to attack whomever is coming to rob the house. So Rosemary did ended up joining the police force, which is the perfect job for somebody like that. So in 2011, Rosemary met this guy. His name was Maurice Mabasa. Maurice worked for the U.S. Embassy, and people who knew him said that he was very kind, he was very generous. In fact, Maurice actually took care of his family. Like, he took care of his mother that was aging, and he also took care of all his 13 siblings. So his job at the U.S. Embassy had him traveling all over. So his main focus wasn't necessarily on dating. He just wanted to work and take care of his entire family. However, when Rosemary met Maurice, things changed, and Maurice was open to dating now once he met her, because I mean, she's a very passionate woman. So they both had very high-paying jobs. At first, everything was going great when they were dating, but then they started having some issues. They started having some financial problems. And this was mainly because Rosemary had a gambling problem. So you know how I said Maurice actually takes care of his family, he takes care of his mother. Rosemary, on the other hand, she did none of that. She literally worked and gambled. That's all she did with her money. She didn't help out her family. She didn't help anyone. She literally just work and gambling. So because of this, it started becoming a problem for her and Maurice, because now she's not only spending her money gambling, she's also spending Maurice's money. And also, since Rosemary is a police officer, she encouraged her family that they should probably take out life insurance, because people were dying. I mean, and probably are still dying from that type of poverty in the area of South Africa that they do live in. So she did went ahead and encourage all of her family members to take out life insurance and burial insurance as well, just in case something happened to them. So Rosemary told her family members that she would go ahead and she would file the paperwork for the life insurance policies, and she would pay for them because she was the one in the family with the higher paying job. So she said, you know what, I'll take care of it for y'all. I'll file the paperwork, so I'll sign it. I'll pay for it. You don't have to worry about anything but live until you die. And then when you die, I'll take care of the rest, basically. All of her family members went ahead with her, followed her plan, and took out the life insurance policy, including one of her cousin, Madala Homu. So Madala Homu, he was just like a little bit reckless, like the way he was living. He was like, so his life was like a little bit reckless. He was just out here partying like and doing like a lot of things. So Rosemary told Madala's mother that she's concerned for him because of the way that he's living, his lifestyle, and people that he hangs around. So she was like, you know, anything could happen to him. So she encouraged his mother to take out the life insurance for him. So they took out the life insurance policy. Everything went well until a few months later. in March of 2012, Homu literally went missing and vanished into thin air. The current climate that they're living in, where Homu lives on Homu's side of town, they don't really have access to the internet. They don't have access to cell phone. Like, there isn't even a picture of him to even put on the screen because, like, he never takes pictures because they just don't have access to those things. So they weren't able to put up like pictures, put up like flyers and all of that stuff. Like, literally, the only thing that they had was word of mouth, basically, and from people who already knew him. So then Homu's mom went to Rosemary and told Rosemary that he's missing. And obviously, Rosemary's a police officer. So Rosemary said she's going to do whatever she needs to do to make sure that she find him. So she ended up telling a few of her higher ups at the station. So they decided to launch an investigation into Homu's disappearance. And this was very, very hard for Homu's family at the time because they felt so helpless. Like, they wanted to do more, but it really wasn't much that they can do at the time. And also, Homu was very family oriented. Like, he was like a family man. Like, he was a major part in his family. So when he was gone, it was very, very hard on the family. Like, it was very, very hard for them. So sadly, shortly after the investigation started, Homu's body was actually discovered in a small town outside of Johannesburg called Olifantsfontein. And they did an autopsy. And the autopsy actually revealed that he died from blunt force trauma to the head, and his death was obviously ruled a homicide. However, the problem is that in most of these towns, a lot of crimes happen and they just go unnoticed because people just don't investigate them because they don't have a lot of resources. I'm guessing they just don't feel like the little bit of resources and the little bit of money that they already have, that the city already have, the town already have, they just feel like it's just not worth them looking into, which is so sad. Like, that is just such a sad thing. Like, these human lives are basically not worth looking at. Like, it's just so crazy, but whatever. So weeks later, Homo was laid to rest. So now, remember I said Rosemary took out the insurance policy. So the only problem here is that Rosemary listed herself as Homu's wife. So she did receive the payout for Homu for the life insurance policy. She received 100,000 Rand, which is about 6,500 US dollars. And literally all she contributed to the whole funeral and everything was 200 Rands, which is equivalent to 13 US dollars. That's all she gave. And she literally went on about her day. And nothing ever came out of Homu's murder because, as I said, they just didn't look into it because homicides, they just happen. Police, they just don't even want to get involved. So they kind of just turn a blind eye to it and just move on. So fast forward to the next year, June of 2013. So Rosemary's sister, Audrey Ndlovu, she was just going on about her day one day, just woke up, doing her errands when she received a call from Rosemary, which was she was taken back by the call because Rosemary didn't follow up with her family too much. Audrey answered the call, and to Audrey's surprise, Rosemary wanted to have dinner with her. And she was like, of course we can have dinner. Like, they haven't done it in a long time. And they figured they can just catch up and just talk about what has been going on. So Audrey invited Rosemary to her home in Tembisa, and she made dinner, and her and Rosemary ate dinner that night. However, the next day, Rosemary was not able to get a hold of Audrey. She just wanted to call her to follow up, just be like, dinner was good or whatever. She wasn't able to get in touch with her. Rosemary felt like it was a little bit weird, so she decided to tell her coworkers and have a police officer go out and do a wellness check. So when the police got there, they actually found that Audrey was poisoned and strangled in her very own home. Right before Audrey's death, Audrey had taken out a life insurance policy for 700,000 Rands, which is about $45,000. And the beneficiary for this money would have been none other than her sister, Rosemary. Just like Homu's murder prior, nothing came out of Audrey's murder. They just didn't look into it because that's just not something that they did. No arrests were made or just nothing. Everyone just went on back with their life. So a few months later in 2014, Rosemary started working for another police jurisdiction. And when she switched locations, she actually requested to be a constable. I think that's like a sergeant or something like that, which she ended up getting the promotion. And also, they loved her at work, at her new job. They freaking loved her. Everyone said that she was super generous. She was super sweet. There were times when she literally offered to buy everybody lunch. Like, she would do that a lot, actually. She would give anyone money that needed money to borrow. That was just the kind of person that she was. So everybody loved her. They're like, okay, well, that's the rich co-worker right there. Like, yes. So later that year, Rosemary became pregnant with her first daughter that they named Makai. So her boyfriend Maurice was super, super happy that he was finally having his own kid. As I said, Maurice took care of his family, his siblings. So now that he have his first kid, like, he's very well prepared and just, ready to start taking care of his own kid as opposed to his sibling. They were very happy. A few months later, after that, Rosemary started having some financial problems because, as I said, she'll make the money, but then she'll spend the money even quicker. So one time she had gone to work and her coworkers actually recalled her coming in, being in like a really, really bad mood and just like yelling, saying she's broke and she doesn't have any money and everything. I'm not sure if someone had asked her for money and that kind of like triggers her saying that, or she just was just ranting. Also, she was also having problems at home. So her and Maurice, they were fighting a lot. I mean, a lot. It was to the point where Maurice would literally leave. Like, some nights he would literally just leave for the night and then come back the next day because they were just arguing too much and he just wasn't there for it. And when he would leave by himself, and then Rosemary would be there with the child and just losing her shit. So this pattern continued for a few months, actually, until one night in 2015. It got so bad to the point where Maurice decided to leave and Rosemary also left and she took the kid and they just went their separate ways. Apparently, it was just supposed to be for one night. But the only problem is, after Maurice left that night, he actually never came back. The only person who returned the next day was Rosemary and the kid. It was very alarming because usually when Maurice would leave to go blow off steam, it would only be for one night and then he will be right back the next morning. So Rosemary went into work and asked for help once more. So after the investigation and them looking for Maurice, they actually found a deceased body in Oliphant's Fontaine, and it was identified that it was Maurice. So now the only problem here is that Maurice was actually stabbed 80 times. But they didn't really know the motive for this murder because it wasn't a robbery, because they were able to find his identification and his credit card on him. His wallet was there, everything, money was still there. So they're like, well, they clearly was not trying to rob him. So what's going on here? Even though they knew that it was a little bit weird, they didn't necessarily look into it any further. And even though Maurice had a very high paying job and had like a prominent position at his job. So it's not like he was like, the poorer individuals who would die and they not look into. When Maurice died, the same thing happened. They just did not even want to look any further into his death. So they just kind of pushed that under the rug. So Maurice had a life insurance policy when he died. His life insurance policy was for 400,000 Rand. And also he did receive an extra 100,000 Rand from the US Embassy because, as I said, that's where he worked at. So in total, I would say that's 500,000 Rand, so about $31,000. And the beneficiary for that was obviously Rosemary. So 3 dead family members, 3 life insurance plans so far, and 1 beneficiary. You would think at this point it would raise some concerns or raise some sort of suspicion with the whole insurance people. You would think it would raise something, but no, it didn't. So we continue. In June of 2016, Rosemary had her niece, Zanelle, staying at her house with her, because her niece was going through some financial problems. So one day, Zanelle actually got hit by a vehicle, and Rosemary decided to take her to the hospital. So when she got to the hospital, they did like a lot of tests, let's check her out just to make sure that she was okay. So when they did the test, they actually didn't really found anything that was wrong with her. She was perfectly fine, just like a few scrapes and scratches, but nothing significant. So they ended up discharging her from the hospital. However, later on that night, Zanelle started complaining that she was experiencing chest pains, and it was so bad to the point where Rosemary had to take her back to the hospital. Actually, Rosemary waited it out. She didn't really take her that same night. She was like, if you don't feel better the next morning, then we could go to the hospital. So the next morning came and Rosemary took her to the hospital. When she got to the hospital, she was in so much pain that she basically collapsed. So by the time she got to the hospital, she basically was not breathing. So when they did some tests on her, they found out that she had a few abrasions on her face. But when they decided to look internally, they actually found that she had several fractured ribs and damages to her organs, including her liver. Like, it was so bad. And they're like, there is no way anyone would have discharged her from the hospital if she looked like this the day prior. They went ahead and they compared the labs from the prior visit to now, and they were like, no, this definitely did not happen when she came in the day prior. This happened after she left the hospital. But Rosemary couldn't think of anything that possibly happened to her. Nonetheless, Zanelle unfortunately did not make it, but Zanelle also had a life insurance policy on her, and her life insurance policy was 120,000 rands, which equivalent to $7,500, with Rosemary as the beneficiary. Rosemary started trying to get close with the rest of her family. Rosemary went ahead and she befriended Zanelle's brother, Mayani, because she wanted to seem like, okay, now that Zanelle has died, I want to be able to come and I want to be able to help people. I want to be able to, basically get closer to my family. So on April of 2017, Mayani was supposed to visit Pretoria. It's a city outside of Johannesburg. He was just supposed to be going somewhere. So now Rosemary offered to drive him because it's a pretty long drive. So she offered that she would drive him half the way and then he can get a ride from someone at a gas station. So Mayani took her up on that offer and he really appreciated it. Rosemary dropped him off as planned. However, the next evening, Rosemary received a call from the police officers saying that they found the body of Mayani outside of Olifanfontein again, which the same story. They didn't look into it any further to see even what happened. Despite all of these crimes that were happening, they didn't even really try to investigate it because, it could be a freaking serial killer. A life insurance policy was taken out on Mayani. However, Rosemary listed herself as his wife. And mind you, Rosemary is his cousin, but this is probably the third wife. So at this point, you would think, ding, 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 alarms would go off for the insurance people, but no alarms went off. However, it didn't necessarily work out as planned because they just needed to see proof that she was in fact Mayani's wife. But she wasn't able to show any proof of that. So they ended up declining the offer for the claim, and Rosemary ended up not getting any money for the death of Mayani. So this young man ended up dying for nothing. So Rosemary was not happy about that, but the only way for Rosemary to get the money that she wants is to move on to the other family members. So shortly after, another one of Rosemary's cousins passed away. Her cousin name was Brilliant. This time they did like a semi-investigation with this one. So they actually look at Brilliant's cell phone record. So they found that the last person to have contact with Brilliant was Rosemary. And they also found that the last person to physically see him was Rosemary. Now, when they went to Rosemary and asked her about this, she basically was upset. She was like, don't even ask me nothing about this. Why would you even insinuate that I was the last person with him? So she basically basically denied everything and got upset and told them don't even ask her no questions like that. Brilliant as well had a life insurance policy, but on this life insurance policy, Rosemary listed herself as his mother. Now, she had no way to prove that she was his mother. So, once again, this claim was denied. So, we're on to the sixth family member, six insurance claims. No suspicions, none. I don't even know how, but no one caught on to this. Rosemary had no plans on stopping. However, she was getting desperate because she wanted money. I mean, this lady have a job, but I guess she wanted money for gambling. I don't know what she wanted the money for, but she was getting real desperate. So she wanted more money. She had two insurance that bounced on her. So at this point, she's freaking out and she's like, I'm SOL. I need to figure some shit out and I need to figure it out quick. So Rosemary went ahead and she used her resources at the police station to hire this hitman. I don't know how to say his first name, so I'm going to say his last name. His last name is Kinene. So she used the database at the station to find Kinene. So Kinene is somebody that she had arrested prior because Kinene is a hitman. So he did his time and now he's out of jail. And you know this woman is desperate when she tried to befriend the enemy. So she went ahead and she hired Kinene and told Kinene that she wanted him to kill her sister for her. Her sister, and not only her sister, but her sister and her 5 children. So you wanted this hitman to kill your sister and her 5 kids. Like, oh my God, this lady, there's no way. When she told Kanene what she wanted, I mean, everybody have a little bit of moral. Kanene was like, I'm a hitman, but this is a little too far, child. It's a little too far. I'm not killing nobody and their 5 kids. So Kanene actually went to the police and reported it. And obviously, Kanene still has something out on her because you arrested me a few years ago. You thought I forgot? So he didn't forget. So he went to police and went to go report it and told them what she was asking him to do. So now the police, on the other hand, end up hiring him to work for them while trying to get Rosemary to confess to the plan so they can use it to arrest her. Now they went ahead and they put a video camera in Kanene's car. So this is when Kanene called up Rosemary and Kanene was like, do you mind us meeting up again so you can just go over the plan for me again because this is too much? I need to make sure all my I's are dots, my T's are crossed, and just basically go over the plan one more time. But this time, Kanene had a friend with him because he figured out this is not a one person's job. I'm gonna need 2 people if you want me to take out 6 people. However, this guy was a undercover officer. So they all met up, and Rosemary ended up taking them 5 hours out of Johannesburg to go show them where her sister lived. Rosemary went over the plan, and I'm gonna play it a little bit. You're gonna have to read it. The way she went over the plan, the way she spoke about it, it was like there's no way you're talking about your sister and her kids. And even if, let's say, they don't have the best relationship because Rosemary is clearly just selfish and only cares about herself, but even if you didn't have the best relationship, there's no way you just talk about killing somebody and their 5 kids so casually. So basically, Rosemary was saying, this is just a short version of the plan. Basically, I'm going to invite my sister somewhere and I'm going to give her these pills and I'm going to tell her, oh, it's for the cold and the flu season. You know, everybody out here getting Rona or whatever. Well, this was 2018. Rona wasn't around, but that's besides the point. So she was like, I'm going to give you these pills, take them at night, and it's good for the flu. And when she take it at night, it would make her pass out. That way, Kanene can gain entrance to the house easily. And then she told Kanene to strangle them and to burn them, but don't stab them or don't shoot them because that side of town, that stuff don't happen a lot. So it'll raise suspicion, even though they probably still wouldn't have investigated. But this is what she said to Kanene. After Rosemary just confessed to this whole elaborate plan, they basically have her on video.
sosebenza kanjani umsebenzi lo ufuna ukuthi uwenze, umsebenzi onjani.
Uyishisa umuntu. Ningangena nibahame ningabashisa. Mara ukugwaza nokudubula ayikho emakhaya. Yabona ukushisa number 1 nokuhamba number 1. Zona lezo yi-2. Bengicabanga ukuthi sihambe manje ne. Masihamba manje niyohlangana naye ngimbize sihlangane somewhere. Mina mhlambe ngifake imoto laphana yabona. Ngimnikezele la philisi Njabulo yabona. Ngimtshele ngithi la maphilisi asiza ntamba mawulala uwaphuza womkhuhlane ngithi manje kuzingena isizini yomkhuhlane ngithi niwaphuze mani lala ngoba ayalalisana then nina nizokhona ukungena ke akunamabhadla laphana ngibuyela la esibhedlela ngibuyela la esibhedlela nayo baba endlini uyazi ukuthi ngila esibhedlela so la esibhedlela ngicelile banginikeze i-pass out bathe ngibuye ngo-4 so lana noma ngafika ngo-5 6 7 akunandaba esilong ngidlulile so ngoba ngithi indawo yokushisa ifuna ngishise kusebusuku siyayibona ngiklini mina nginakucala ngazi mase bangitshela indaba mina kusasa ngiyavuvuka ngiyagijima ngiyekhaya ngicela amalungiselelo ngiyaklima ngenza zonke lezi zinto.
So when they got to Rosemary's sister's house, Rosemary basically got out of the car, and this is when they arrested her. And it was so crazy because her sister was baffled. Her sister was like, what's going on? What the hell is happening? And then this is when the hitman literally told her that you and your kids are supposed to die at 9 p.m. tonight. Like, can you imagine? It's a good thing this hitman have a little bit of moral, because it's like, Lord have mercy. Can you imagine? Nonetheless, in 2018, the trial began. She was tried with 6 counts of murder for the life of her cousin, Homu, her sister, Audrey, her boyfriend, Maurice, her niece, Zanelle, her nephew, Mayani, and Brilliant. And throughout her killing spree that she went through, the whole life insurance fraud and all of that, she ended up gaining 1.4 million rand, which was only about $91,000. And that's not a lot of money to kill 6 people for. Like, I see if you kill 1 person for that, killing, it's not worth it either way. But for 6 people, just for $90,000, like, girl. When the trial first started, it was a little bit hard for them to actually pin Rosemary to the crimes because, like I said, they didn't investigate nothing. So they have no fingerprints, no nothing to even bring to trial. So they had to gather witnesses to basically say what they know. So they had about a total of 40 witnesses, including her friends, her family, her co-workers, her mother, her mother, child. I can only imagine her mother would have been next. And also her family members, they all said that when she came to the funerals, she showed no remorse. So they also used that in court as well. And they also used the statement from the hitman. So 3 years later, in October of 2021, Rosemary was found guilty on all charges, 6 counts of murder, 4 counts of fraud, 7 incitement to murder. So she will be serving 6 life sentences in prison and 70 years for the incitement to murder and another 10 years for the frauds that she committed for those people life insurance. And this woman put on a show in court. She literally didn't care. She showed no remorse. She was sick every other day. Every other day when it was time for court, she was saying she doesn't feel good. She, just by the look of her face and the photos, just by the videos that I saw online and everything, she showed no remorse. Like, she just did not care. She was like, and I'll do it again. That was just the vibe that I got from her. But Lord bless her heart and bless the heart of all the people that she took. So that is all I have for today. That is the story of Rosemary Ndlovu. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye bye.